So we should be recording. Um, so this is our agenda for today. We're going to start off with an overview of the Mayor's Resilience Fund, and then we're going to go over three different challenge prizes, three of our different challenges, and then we'll have a Q&A session right at the end. As mentioned before, after each of these sessions, we will be pausing for a quick Q&A session, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to ask your questions. If we don't have any questions about the agenda, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Maria Geftar from the GLA to give us the overview.
Thanks, Naseen, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. I'm Maria Geftar. I work in the economic development team across technology and innovation at the Greater London Authority. As part of the Mayor's Resilience Fund, we spent September through to December last year working with communities, business associations and other stakeholders to understand the key and urgent priorities that London is facing, both in terms of recovery and the future resilience of the city. And through that engagement process, we selected 10 challenges, which were published on 23rd of February, and 10 partners that we'll be working with as part of those challenges, and the innovators would be working with to co-develop their solutions and products and services. And we're very proud to present two of those partners today, which is Thrive and Groundwork. If you can go on to the next slide, please, Naseen. So the Mayor's Resilience Fund is an open challenge, open innovation program. It draws on the London Resilience Strategy, which was published early last year, that identifies key stresses London is facing as a city and cuts across themes like lack of social cohesion and inequality, but also infrastructure, housing, and others. But as I say, we did an engagement process to identify, okay, across these areas, what are the emerging priorities, and how can this fund help support both the recovery of the city from COVID-19, but also to improve the city's resilience going forward. So as a result, we developed a series of open innovation competitions based around 10 challenges that we identified, and the program itself aims to support innovators to create kind of impactful solutions and to access funding to design and test those solutions together with the partners. Next slide, please. So in terms of the program itself, it brings together innovators, as I mentioned, whether they be early stage or fully funded tech startups, engineers, social enterprises, teams with great ideas, together with organizations such as boroughs, local authorities, business improvement districts and charities to co-design new solutions together. Now, in terms of the benefit to innovators for applying, it provides a route to market and access to potential customers and partners to kind of develop their products and services or expand and scale products and services. It provides access to up to 50,000 in funding to test and validate those solutions, and provides access to pilot sites, data, and other expertise that can help innovators in doing that. It also provides access to a broader business support program, expertise and knowledge facilitated through workshops and training sessions through that initial delivery phase 1 co-design period, which includes kind of, as I say, user design, but also procurements and how to create open data and a lot of different things, as well as kind of traditional business support and pitching support that we'll be offering. And I'll leave it there and pass over to Kathy on the timelines.
Great, thanks, Maria. My name is Kathy. I work at Nesta Challenges along with Naseen, as she mentioned, and we're running this in partnership with the Mayor of London. And so I'll talk through a few more bits, excuse me, I'll talk through a few more bits about what to expect over the coming months in this program. So as Maria mentioned, the call for innovators opened on February 23rd. And you can see here, it does close quite soon, April 1st. We've only got a few more weeks where the application is open. and where we're looking for ideas to come forward from you through that entry form. What will happen then in April is that we have an external team of assessors, and we'll be working with external panels of judges who will be reviewing each application, comparing against the criteria that we put out to determine which are the most promising innovators. We're starting with a group of 40 innovators will be selected for each of the challenges. Will be selected to receive £10,000 and get the opportunity to work with the resilience partners to refine and test their solutions. So that will take place, as you can see, delivery phase 1 from early May through about early to mid-June. It's a roughly 5-week time period that the selected innovators will be able to work with resilience partners, understand more about the challenge that they're looking to solve, work with potential end users of a solution that you're working on, get access to a menu of non-financial support that we're developing, while providers working with you on developing and honing a pitching, so your pitching process, working on human-centered design, service design, support with government procurement processes, some networking events, a variety of things that would be made available to you during that time. And then at the end of that first phase of delivery in mid-June, the judges will convene again to review your progress. And from those initial pool of innovators, we'll select one winner for each challenge. So 10 innovators will be selected and awarded up to 40K each, and have the opportunity to spend the rest of the summer working with the resilience partner to implement your solutions. Next slide, please, Naseem. And so as far as who can apply, this is all available online. It's on both challenges.org/resilience fund, or challenge.org/Mayor's Resilience, as well as on the Tech London Resilience site. So you can find all this online. But just to quickly run through it, looking for London-based teams, you need to be registered in the UK. Can be a sole trader, but there's some evidence that you need to provide in support of your status. We welcome applications that are partnership. If you're a single organization applying, that's fine. But if you've got a partner, there's a couple of organizations working together, we welcome that as well. So either way is fine. You can submit more than one entry for more than one challenge. If you've got capabilities across your organization that you believe you're interested in more than one of the challenges, you're more than welcome to do that. But we do ask that you submit a separate application for each challenge, and they'll be assessed individually. Because the funding is coming from the mayor's office, can't support things that are party political in nature, religious activity, can't support organizations that are bankrupt or have financial difficulties. And then the last point is, where possible, depending on the type of challenge that you're providing and your approach, the solution that you're providing, we are encouraging entrants to explore how you can make your product or solution open source, open standard, interoperable, or open license. So if you could have that in mind and how you can express that in your application, we'd look forward to seeing that. Next slide, please. And then as far as the eligibility, not the eligibility, the assessment criteria, these are the things that the judges will be looking at when they review your proposal in the application form. And this is consistent across all 10 challenges. There's one application, and this is the broad criteria that we're looking to see across everything that gets submitted. So I'll just run through this quickly. The first one is suitability. Of course, we want to see solutions proposed that are in line with the challenge that's described. So we want to make sure that there's some connection and that there's relevance to what you're proposing to do in terms of what the challenge is looking to solve. Impact. The percentages here are indications of how the scoring will be weighted. So impact at 20%, there's two pieces to impact. It's first, we want to see how your solution will make a difference to the target beneficiaries. But then additionally, is your solution scalable? Is it transferable? Is it adaptable to other contexts? Would it work across London? Would it work with other types of organizations, with other boroughs, with other geographies? We want to see kind of the bigger picture kind of benefits of it. Innovation, we want to see something that, because it's an open innovation competition, we're looking for solutions that go beyond existing best practice, that's different or better than what's currently on the market. Feasibility, you can see that there's quite a bit of weight placed on feasibility because there's a lot of pieces to that. We want to know about your project plan, your capabilities to execute it long term. We want to know the technology that's behind your solution. Is it feasible? We want to know how it can be delivered within the challenge budget and timescales. And we want to be sure that your solution has been designed with a clear understanding of the end user and what their needs are and how they would interact with it. And then the final piece you can see is capability. So we'll be looking at the team behind your solution. Have you got kind of a background, track record, skills, experience that indicates the success? And have you identified and mitigated significant risks? Next slide, please, Nassim. And so how you apply, as I mentioned, is a single application form. It's a written application form. You can find that online. There's the link here. It's through the Greater London Authority's Open Project System. You do need to register first. It's not complicated at all. There's some guidance you can see in that link there of how to register. All of this, again, I say, is available on our website. You just need to go in, register, and it's a really simple process, and then you're in the system, and then you can submit your application. You can start your application, save it, and come back to it. You can also see that there's a PDF of the full application available online too, so you can start to take a look at that and see the questions we're asking for. There's 10 questions. They're all pretty straightforward. I do want to say, since it's an open innovation competition, they're relatively open-ended questions. We want to hear from you about what your solution is that you have in mind, how you would approach this challenge. It's not like a grant program where we have a very specific solution in mind that needs to be provided. We want to know how you would do that. We want to look at your ideas and your proposals and how that fits to solve the challenge that's laid out, if that makes sense. Next slide, please, Nassim. And so there, as you may have seen, there's 10 different challenges. Last week, we held 2 webinars, and those have, similar to today's, those have been recorded and are available online. So we talked about the first 7 challenges. I won't read them all to you. You can see all those that were covered last week. And then today, we've got the Resilience partners that are sponsoring these 3 challenges. We'll be hearing from the team behind the Bereavement Services Challenge, the COVID Safe Travel Challenge, and the Local Food Challenge. So we can dig into the details of those. And then there's information about all 10 challenges, of course, on our website as well. Next slide, please. So we thought here we could pause, see if there are questions about the things that Maria and I have just described, the overall purpose, the application process, the criteria, things like that, before we get into the details on the 3 challenges we're talking about today. So you can either unmute yourself and ask a question or drop it into the chat. And if not, that's of course fine. We can dig into the 3 challenges, and there's time at the end for further questions as well. And you can drop questions into the chat at any time, really.
Hi there, it's Elena here from Spacecraft. I have a question in relation to the funding available at each of the 2 stages. Is that funding specific? Is there any requirement of what this funding needs to cover in specific, and what level of detail do you want us to provide on that?
Yeah, so the funding has to be spent on your solution relevant to that particular challenge. So it's not that I know in other types of prizes or competitions, the funding is kind of a no strings attached. It's kind of an award. In this particular case, that initial 10K for the first phase needs to be spent during that time on your solution, on developing it, related to it. So when you're putting in your application, there are sections in there to describe what you would do with the funding and kind of what your short-term plans are. And then same with the second round of funding for the winners. It's expected that money gets spent working on the solution that you're describing. Maria, do you have anything else to add from your side?
No, I think that sounds right.
Just to clarify, and if the solution perhaps involves more funding, is that then delivered in the next stage when it's the actual implementation of it, which will be a stage 3, I'm guessing?
So that, if I understand your question correctly, there's no funding designated beyond the initial 10K and then the second round of the 40K. After that, any further funding that you would need would have to either be developed through other sources or potentially going through a procurement process with a potential customer to your solution, but there's no additional funding planned. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, roughly. I guess my question is that, say the 40K will cover the next stage development, but actually to implement the project may be more expensive than 40K, depending on the scale and the type. The type of projects or one of the challenges may be more expensive than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
There is also a question in the chat about whether if work takes place in London, but the registered address of the business is outside of London, would the application be eligible? Maria or Kathy, would you like to take that?
It depends. I mean, it depends on if that company, if most of your activity takes place in London anyway. But if you mean that your company operates outside of London, but for the purposes of this challenge or the challenges you're applying for, the activity will take place in London, then that may be a bit more tricky. It depends on where your base of activity is as a company, just because in terms of funding, at Greater London Authority, we can only fund businesses within Greater London. So that would be the context there. But if that doesn't answer your question, then do ping us a line, and we can pick up over email.
Okay, thank you both. I think we'll move on to the challenges section, but if you do have more questions, yeah, just put them in chat or we can address them right at the end. So I'm going to introduce our first challenge, which is the Bereavement Services Challenge. And up to talk about that is Suado and Helen. So Suado, Helen, are you both there?
Yep, I'm here. I think Suado is as well.
I'm here.
Cool, so I can kick us off. I'm Helen Daly, I'm the Evaluation and Research Lead at Thrive London. And just for some background on Thrive London, we are a public mental health partnership across the London health and social care system. We're a participation-driven partnership, so we really encourage the voice of Londoners and make sure that the voice of Londoners is a part of everything that we do. And in context of the pandemic, we have been leading and coordinating the public mental health response to COVID-19 since March 2020, and so our major funder and one of our biggest partners is the Mayor and the Mayor's Office, and we are also supporting with the Health and Wellbeing Recovery Mission, which has been led by the GLA. And in context of this challenge, I can give some very brief overview of data intelligence around grief and bereavement during COVID-19, and then Suado will talk through the challenge itself. So we know that grief and bereavement is a direct impact of the pandemic, which we know will continue to have, has already and will continue to have a huge effect on large amount of Londoners. We know that due to the disparities in the risks and outcome of COVID-19, this is not something which will be affecting all Londoners and London communities equally. Black, Asian and minority ethnic Londoners have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, and Black and Asian people have been more likely to be diagnosed with and die of the virus. And thus this is having a disproportionate impact on their communities. We also know that bereavement from COVID-19 and throughout the pandemic is likely to be a very challenging type of bereavement, and there's an increased risk of trauma and complicated grief during in the past year. Research has shown that for each person who has died due to COVID, up to 5 people will be bereaved or really feel the impact of that loss and will potentially need access to bereavement support services. So kind of more broader again, provisional data from the ONS has shown that almost 18,000 people have died since March 2020 involving COVID-19, and this represents just under 30% of all deaths during this period. And the highest proportion of deaths involving COVID-19 across London have been in the boroughs of Newham, Barking and Dagenham, Tower Hamlets and Redbridge. And we know that these are diverse communities and boroughs with high proportions of people from Black and Asian minority ethnic communities. Now I'll hand over to Suado, who will talk through the challenge.
Hi. It should be in video. I'm not sure if you can see me anyway. So in terms of the challenge, it's as detailed here. It's to develop an accessible and culturally competent solution that enables more personalised bereavement guidance and support for Londoners from minority ethnic groups bereaved by or during COVID-19. And the solution should reflect local minority ethnic community history and culture. And we've kept that a little bit broad because we wanted it to be a particular group that the innovators will have knowledge and a relationship with potentially. where that will be determined by the co-development will determine that, and the end users will be Londoners from minority ethnic groups bereaved by COVID-19. In terms of what kind of impact we're seeking, as detailed here, any offer would have to be locally meaningful type impact, and it would have to show improved outcomes for Londoners from a minority ethnic group. For example, it would have to show engagement with the chosen group, and the group would have to be able to interact with their community on the platform, feel supported, and the platform should help provide support as part of the process. And beyond pilot, we're seeking something that could be potentially sustainable, replicable, or scaled up with other groups in London. What will we provide as a resilience partner? We can support with linking in with partners and those in the bereavement sector. We also have links with, we can link in with relevant work, for example, the GLA mapping work on bereavement. And we can link in with stakeholders or direct to stakeholders who work in the provision of culturally competent mental health and bereavement support that's necessary. And Thrive London can share existing campaign and program materials and resources. In terms of what does good look like, this as detailed here, we ideally should be led by user needs. It should be digitally enabled, given the current situation. We anticipate that things will be online for quite some time. It should be accessible and inclusive, easy to use and engage with, and more importantly, able to signpost to specialist support for those experiencing more complex grief and related issues. So where, it's not, the platform will not be enough for them. And obviously provide support to those who have additional grief needs as well. And like we said, in terms of long term, we should be able to demonstrate impact to potential funders. And in terms of credibility, have a bit, be research-based and have impact from a psychological body, such as the British Psychological Society or the Black and Asian Counselling Psychologists group. And also this work will link in with the current the GLA is doing around bereavement gap analysis, which we will hopefully be able to share. So that was just a quick summary. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Suado. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put them in the chat. I realize that coming up with questions on the fly can be difficult. So please do take some time to think of your questions. And like we said, we'll have session right at the end. I'm just going to unmute somebody. There we go. And also just to say that there may be some construction noises going around behind me. So sorry for that. I'm just going to move on to the next challenge. This is the COVID Safe Travel Challenge. And Maria is going to introduce that to us today.
Thanks. Essentially with this challenge, we're looking to create a digital service that integrates health and travel data. By health data, we mean mostly 7-day average infection data on a local level per borough and per ward where possible. With travel and busyness data and also up-to-date guidance and advice to help Londoners make informed decisions and personal risk assessments in relation to COVID-19. It's kind of a pan-London challenge and looking in the short to medium term, probably up until sort of 21st of June or so, to support, to think about how we can support specifically any prototypes to support those Londoners that continue to be and remain to be economically active during sort of high-level restrictions. But going forward, we hope this tool would help kind of facilitate the safe reopening of London's economy and to facilitate Londoners to engage in safer economic activity, kind of increase confidence and equip people with up-to-date information and empower them to kind of make those calculations and risk assessments. In terms of what we will be providing, we'll be working with Public Health England on this challenge, with providing access to data, partnerships, and up-to-date kind of public health messaging to align both with national guidance and the most up-to-date evidence. In kind of the longer term, we want to see a tool that provides kind of real-time information, showing COVID-19 rates across London, utilizing infection data, but also whether through an integration with TfL Go app, for example, looking at travel data, how busy it is on trains and on the tube, but also working with other partners that Chile is working with on mapping the broader kind of data that we're seeing in London across kind of footfall and busyness in shops and other venues, to provide kind of access to up-to-date health advice and guidance and information for Londoners. So that's kind of the broad overview of the challenge. Happy to take any questions either now or later, or indeed over email.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, please do unmute yourself now to ask a question or just put it in the chat. Okay, I think we can move on to the next challenge. So next up we have the local food challenge, and introducing this to us will be Katrina.
Hi everyone, I'm Katrina Baker. I'm the Director of Communities and Environmental Services at Groundwork, and I'm the project lead. I'm also with my colleague Fiona Brenner, who manages our strategic development. And we're going to try and give you a project overview. For those of you that don't know Groundwork, we're an environmental and social regeneration charity. We work with communities to improve places and spaces across London. To set the scene, in Barnet, Groundwork are part of a partnership called Barnet Together. It's a collaboration between charities Groundwork, Young Barnet Foundation, Inclusion Barnet. At the start of the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic, Barnet Together partnership saw there was a need for a partnership approach to the local community response, and we worked with the local authority and community and faith partners to support the borough. And one of the key areas and challenges that we had to tackle was access to food. And like many boroughs, we supported the local authority to set up a local food hub to distribute food to the shielded and food banks across the borough. Barnet Together's role was to support the food banks network. And when shielding stopped, we've taken over the management of the local food hub for the community. We now currently support a network of 16 food banks providing top-up food supplies, and that includes over 28 tonnes of surplus food distributed since November last year. We're definitely, as a project, the icing on the cake and not the cake, and we have a vision to work in partnership to create a local food system that helps tackle food insecurity. And to do this, we need to create a digital platform, and this is what we need the help with. We want to manage food supply and demand, that's food banks, community projects, and even holiday hunger. We want to understand the data and predict need. And we want to promote donations directly to food banks to help them engage with the communities and charitable donations. And then also we want to help create a system that helps redirect excess food across the borough. And I'm going to tag team with Fiona, who's going to give you a bit more of the kind of approach that we're looking for.
Hi, I'm Fiona. I lead on strategic development at Groundwork London. We are wanting to really create a local food system. So taking all of those local actors who are all playing their own part, the food banks, the restaurants, the venues as they reopen, who will have surplus food, and create a way that they can connect directly. So it's about creating a system which can work within Barnet and that we can use to create connections which aren't just about coming through us as a central food hub, but creating connections within the community as well, but also something that could be rolled out to other areas so that it doesn't have to stay just in one borough, but it could be in other London boroughs and potentially wider than that, which is about creating something which is entirely sensitive to the particular local area that it's working in, because it's going to have, there are going to be different people who are part of creating, using and sharing food wherever they are in the country. So it's about having a peer network. It's about being able to communicate, and it's being able to understand what the need is, where it is, and how it can be best responded to.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks.
oh yeah, thank you, Katrina and Fiona. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's that kind of summarizes what our thinking is and our overarching vision.
Thank you. Were there any questions about this challenge specifically? You can put that in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I think while everybody takes a minute to think, I'll open it up to questions about all of the challenges that we've heard about today, and also about the fund as a whole. So do take a minute to think about it. If you do want more information, you can visit our website. You can see the URL up there on the screen. And if you do have more questions that you think about after this webinar, you can always send in an email. So I'll give everybody like 30 seconds or so, just some time. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any questions coming in, but this webinar will be made available on our website, along with the other 2 webinars that we carried out with the other resilience partners. So if you did want to check out their challenges as well, you can go on the website, and we will be sending around the slides to everybody that registered, so you should receive these and other slides as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I hope that you gained some useful information, and I hope you all have a good afternoon. So with that, I will stop recording. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.